I watched that 8-part story, so you don't have to. That's Richie, and she's telling us that she found out that her baby daddy and his mother were cheating, and the mother ended up being pregnant. So the story happened about 5 years ago, and she was telling us how, like, all of a sudden, her baby daddy, who we're gonna name Randy's mom started acting really, like, hostile towards Richie, and she didn't really understand why. We're gonna name Randy's mom Daphne. So Richie's trying to figure out why Daphne's acting so hostile towards her. So she asked Randy one day, she's like, yo, why is your mom acting like that? And he was like, oh, what do you mean? She's always been like that. And Richie's looking at him like, I've known your mom for years. She's never treated me like this. What are you talking about? So one day they're all together and Daphne's like, hey, where's my grandbaby? Like, I want to see him. And Richie's like, oh, he's at my mom's house. Daphne gets so mad, she literally leaves. And then Randy follows her and leaves with her right afterwards. And so Richie's sitting there like, just because he's not here, you're acting like that? Like, I'm so confused. So she looks up Randy's location and she sees that he's at a hotel. So she ends up calling him and he's like in the car in the parking lot, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm here with my mom. I'm just trying to calm her down. We'll be back at the house. It ends up taking them 3 hours to get back to the house. When they finally show up, so Richie and Randy are like, let's go home. So they hop in the car. And the minute that Richie got into the car, she's like, it smells like people have been doing grown folks things in this car. What the hell is going on? So she's looking at Randy sideways. Randy's claiming that it was only him and Daphne in the car. Why would there be such a scent in the car? So then Daphne is like, where's your mom's car? Like, she drove off on her own. Like, where's her car? And he's like, oh, my dad came and picked up her car. And then I dropped my mom off at my grandmother's house. So she said the car beeper was going off, telling her, like, put her seatbelt on. So she goes to put her seatbelt on. And when she looks, there's a Magnum wrapper just sitting there. We'll just call it Magnum. I don't really know if it was, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And she's like, what the hell? So she starts spazzing. Richie gets so pissed off, she grabs the wheel, she swerves the car. Richie's going off so bad. She said when she looked at Randy, he just had fear in his face. The car ends up getting smashed up really badly. So people end up coming out to help them. She still gets up, picks up a stick and starts trying to hit Randy with it. Someone else sees all this commotion. They walk up and they're asking them, like, are you guys okay? And Randy's like, no, we're fine. They end up like leaving their car there and walking to a gas station. And as they're walking to the gas station, Randy's trying to talk to Richie. She smacks him in the face. She's like, don't speak to me. Like, I have nothing to say to you. Richie tries to text her mom and be like, hey, I need you to call me back really quickly. And when she didn't, it like obviously freaked her out because she's like, my mom never doesn't answer my text messages. And so she's like at the gas station now and she's crying. She's thinking that her and Randy are on their way to marriage. They're like locked in. So the police end up arriving at the scene and Randy lies to the police and tells him, oh, I saw a deer and I swerved so I wouldn't hit it. At this point, Richie's not saying anything. She's just being quiet. They clear them. They send them to the hospital. The hospital makes sure they're okay. She gets home and she immediately starts packing her things. Randy's trying to explain himself out of it. He's like trying to tell her, no, don't leave. Like, that's not mine. I don't know why you're tripping. Like, that's not even mine. And she's telling him, like, come up with an answer then. Tell me what this is. Tell me whose this is. Like, make it make sense. And he literally looks her in the face and goes, that's my mom's. And Richie even jokingly says, like, what do you mean? What, are you sleeping with your mom or something? Randy's like, yeah, my mom and my dad have been having issues and my mom was trying to use this as an excuse to leave and cheat. So at this point, Randy actually ends up getting on the phone with his mom and being like, hey mom, can you tell Richie like that wasn't mine, Not even 10 minutes after getting off the phone with Daphne, there's a knock on the door and they're like, what the hell, what's going on? And they're like, we're not expecting anybody. The only person that even comes over to our place is Daphne, so who could that be, right? So Randy goes to check through the peephole, which Richie thought was really weird, and then immediately he goes straight to the closet and he goes to grab his pew-pew. Come to find out, it's Randy's dad on the other side. We're gonna name him Jeff. The whole time that Jeff is beating on the door, he's screaming, he's yelling, he's acting so wild, and Richie's so shocked because she's like, Jeff is such a calm, quiet, like really chill guy, and he is acting completely besides himself right now. Mind you, Richie feels like Jeff is being used by Daphne. He's not even her type apparently. All of a sudden Randy pushes her to the floor and he tells her, go in the room right now. So he goes to open the door, and the minute he goes to open up the door, he drops the pew-pew and it goes off, but it doesn't hit anybody. That obviously scared Richie, so she runs out, and when she runs out, she was horrified to see what she saw. Jeff was standing there with blood all over his hand, and they were just looking at him like, what the hell? And Richie kind of foreshadows, and she tells us that what Jeff was actually thinking at this point with all that blood on his hand is that he had poked up his wife Daphne, and he's running over to Randy's house trying to come up with an alibi. And so he's walking around confused, pacing back and forth. They don't know this information yet, right? They just see all of this stuff on his hand, right? And so Randy's trying to talk to his dad, but his dad is just telling him, shut up, don't say anything. Richie also said Jeff didn't look remorseful for anything that he had done. So Richie looks at him and she's like, you know what? Like, he actually loves me me like a daughter. Let me use that to my advantage. So she tries to calm Jeff down and like speak to him and be like, hey, like let me get you a rag, let me like help you clean off, like calm down. And she finally gets him to settle down, and she goes to grab him a rag. At this point, Randy gets up. The minute Randy gets up, Jeff gets pissed off all over again, and she tells him, sit down. So then Richie convinces Jeff like, hey, let your son go grab you some water, like it's fine. So they go into the kitchen to grab some water. Richie is shaken up. She's like Loki having a little breakdown in the kitchen, crying, and she, from the corner of her eye, sees Randy put some type of white substance inside of the water that he was about to give to Jeff. She's like, I'm not about to say anything. I'm going to take this to the grave. Like, I don't know what you're putting in there. That's a cabinet I can't even reach. I don't know what's up there. So they go back in there and they hand Jeff the water and the rag. She doesn't want to do anything as far as like touching it, because she's like, this is clearly some sort of crime. The minute they hand Jeff that glass of water, he chugs it down. Richie is watching and she's mortified. So at this point, Jeff is only talking to Richie, and he's saying some stuff, and he's telling Randy like, you better shut up, and if you don't shut up and try to say something, I'm gonna unalive you. He's directly speaking to Richie at this point. And this is when Jeff reveals that he has an iPad that's connected to Daphne's phone, and every message that she receives, he receives. He said Daphne didn't even know about the iPad. Jeff goes on to tell Richie, I saw messages between Randy and Daphne when they were at that hotel. Everything they told you was a lie. He told her he was in a hotel. Whole time, like I told you guys, he was in a parking lot in the car. Daphne's telling Randy, if you don't tell what happened, I won't tell what happened between me and you. So when Jeff first saw that message, he was at work. He was extremely alarmed, right? So he decided to go to a restaurant after work and just read through all the messages. And so as he was reading, he ended up uncovering that Randy was not his biological son. He also found out that the person that is actually Randy's biological father, Daphne, is currently having an affair with him right now. Richie is so confused. She's like, what? She's so mad. And then that's when Jeff told her, yeah, when they were at the hotel, Daphne had just met up with the other man and Randy had just met up with another girl. And the whole reason that Randy showed up at the hotel in the first place was so it didn't look suspicious. When Richie FaceTimed Randy, it was after all of the escapading had happened already. Jeff was upset because he thought that the wrapper that was found in the car belonged to his son, Randy. Instead, it actually belonged to Daphne. So when Randy called Daphne and said, hey, tell Richie that this is yours, that actually blew up his mom's spot, and he basically outed his mom to his dad. So at that point, Jeff said he was at the restaurant, he went straight to the shop and he bought himself the sharpest pokey that he could find, and he went straight back to his house because he knew Daphne was home. And then Jeff starts to like rub his head and he's like, I don't feel good. He's like, let me go to the bathroom. So he walks to the bathroom. The minute he tries to get up and walk to the bathroom, he collapses. Randy's sitting there like nothing happened, like everything's completely normal. Richie's obviously freaking out. Randy goes, he looks at Jeff, he turns off the lights at the bathroom and he closes the door. And Richie's like, what's going on? What happened? Like, is he okay? Is he unalived? He's like, he's not unalived yet. At this point, Richie's like, I'm leaving. You got Jeff knocked out in the bathroom. I don't want anything to do with this. And so she's trying to leave. First, she tries to get in a car. She realizes, I've totaled the car. I can't do that. Then she's like, oh, I'll just go ahead and call an Uber. And at this point, Randy tries to pick a fight with her. When he tried to pick a fight with her, she picked up her work boot and she hit him on the head. They ended up arguing for the next 2 hours. As they're arguing, all of a sudden they hear a knock on the door. They're both looking at each other like, who could be at our door? So they go to open the door and come to find out it's the police. And they're asking, hey, have you seen Daphne? She's been reported missing. They're looking at each other like, who could have possibly reported Daphne missing? And so Randy ends up talking to them and giving them all the information. Richie said had the cops even just stepped a foot into the house, they would have seen the rag that Jeff used to clean himself with, the pew, all of the mess that was happening, Jeff knocked out in the bathroom. Randy ends up breaking down crying. The police leave once they've gathered all the information from Randy. Come to find out, the person that actually reported Daphne missing was the other man that she was sleeping with, Randy's apparent biological father, who we're gonna call Jason. Before Richie or Randy can collect their thoughts, Jeff has woken up and he's quiet. He hears the police. He doesn't want to get caught. He just pokeyed his wife. So he's in the bathroom quietly. After they leave, he sneaks out and he comes around the front and he grabs his son. He's wrapped him up at this point. He gets Randy to sit down and Jeff doesn't skip a beat. He doesn't even ask why he was knocked out on the bathroom floor. He goes right back to telling the story. So he says he shows up to the house and he walks in and he hears noises. He bursts through the door to find Jason and Daphne on top of each other. Jason hop up, he sees the situation, he goes running. Daphne tries to hop up and run after him. When she realizes that she doesn't have the keys, between the two of them, somehow Daphne got picked to come back into the room and grab the keys. When she walks into the keys, she finds Jeff on the bed crying. Daphne tries to make a run for it. Jeff hops up and he pokes her a few times. And so at this point, they're outside. Jason sees everything. Jeff gets up. He doesn't know if she's, unalived or not, and he runs off. So at at that point, when Jason saw Daphne on the floor and he saw Jeff run off, he ran back into the house, he grabbed the keys, and he left. And I guess he got really panicked and he ended up calling the police and reporting her missing. While Jeff is explaining all of this to Randy, all of a sudden they hear glass break from the primary bedroom. And when they go and look, they see that Randy had ran off. And not only did Randy ran off, but he also left his phone behind. And so now the police are calling Randy's phone. Come to find out, when the police arrived, they obviously found Daphne on the ground and they were able to transport her to the hospital. Richie said that Daphne was in critical but stable condition and that she had made it through her surgeries. So at this point, Randy is MIA. Jeff has Randy's phone in his hand and the police are calling him. And so he tells Richie, go ahead and tell the cops that Randy ran away so that he can shift suspicion to him. And then Randy tells her, tell the police to call your phone now, because he's thinking we're about to leave Randy's phone in the house. At this point, Richie's like, this man is sinister. I don't know what he's planning. Let me come up with a backup plan. So again, playing on the fact that he has a soft spot for her, she ends up telling Jeff, hey, I'm actually pregnant. This is your grandson. Immediately, he starts acting like nicer. He starts acting more like calm. After not finding her house keys, they hop in the car and they start driving off. And they're driving by a bunch of gas stations. Mind you, Jeff is on E. He needs to fill up, and he drives by at least 5 or 6 gas stations. Finally, he turns into this random gas station, and she's like, what's so special about this one? Come to find out, this gas station was owned by his childhood best friend. He ends up letting Jeff fill up for free. Richie's like, I need to go use the bathroom. Again, I'm preggo. Let me use the bathroom, right? So he lets her. She walks inside. At some point, Jeff's best friend followed her into the bathroom as well, and he tried to essay her in there. And she's like screaming and yelling and trying to get him off of her. A customer ends up walking into the store, and they're actually looking for the bathroom too. Richie is fighting for her life in that bathroom. She ends up kicking him in the ball. She's like, I would have given blue balls if I could. Jeff's best friend ends up running out of the bathroom, and then he runs back into the bathroom when he sees the customers are trying to make it seem like he's trying to help Richie rather than being the cause of all the commotion. So when Richie came out, the best friend is standing right there. It re-traumatized her again, and Jeff is yelling at her like, what happened? What happened? Are you okay? And so she was like, I'm not about to lie. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. And she tells him exactly what the best friend tried to do. That Jeff gets so pissed off, he just starts letting off on his best friend. So then Richie walks out, but then she ends up hearing the best friend trying to lie and be like, no, I didn't do that. No, I didn't do that. So she goes back in there and she starts laying on him too and being like, don't lie. Why would I lie? So he ends up giving him $500. So they hop back in the car and they're driving. And then Richie realizes that Jeff's phone is going off and off. And she's like, what's going on? Come to find out, the police have been calling Jeff and he's not picking up. So when the police realize that Jeff's not picking up, they start calling Richie's phone. And so she's like, hey, I have to pick up. I'm the only one that's been talking to the police. If I all of a sudden decide to stop talking to them, like, it's going to be an issue. So then Jeff pulls off to the side of the street and he tells her to get out. When she gets out and the police call again, he tells her, just scream, scream. And she starts screaming and he lets off 3 pew-pews into the air. And then he grabs the phone and he's like, yeah, come get me and my girlfriend. The whole time Richie's thinking, well, now I'm hoping that they track my phone and come and get me. At this point, Randy ends up leaving the shells from the pew-pew in the bushes along with Richie's phone. And Richie's like, damn, there goes my hopes of being tracked. But what they didn't know was that somebody heard those 3 shots go off and they had called the police at this point. So back at the hospital, Daphne is good. She's out of surgery. First, the doctors asked her, like, where's your husband at? And she's like, oh, I don't know. He's at work. And then the police arrive and they ask Daphne, can you describe what the person looked like that did this to you? And Daphne's like, no, I can't. And so now the doctor and the police are looking at her like, you can't describe who did this to you? And the doctors end up walking up to her and being like, hey, we just wanted to let you know, congratulations, you're pregnant. And instead of saying anything, being surprised, nothing, she asked for her phone. And immediately she ends up texting Randy and being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm pregnant. It's not going to be Jason's son because me and Jason use protection. You're the only person I don't use protection from. Randy's phone is back at the house and Randy's gone. These messages that are being sent to Randy from Daphne are going straight to Jeff's iPad that he still has. And so he starts panicking. He starts just losing. Oh my God, I got a vasectomy after, Randy was born, like 2 years after he was born. This is definitely not my kid. Jeff was so distracted, he swerved into the wrong lane. And then he tried to swerve back. One of the tires popped at that moment. They end up flipping the car 5 times. The car is so damaged. Jeff is injured. The people that Jeff almost hit on the wrong side of the street had stopped and tried to help him get them out of the car. Jeff is screaming and saying that his leg hurts. They end up being on the side of the street for hours trying to make sure that Jeff was okay. Finally, the people are like, hey, like, your car is done for. Like, is there anything we can do? Can we take you to the hospital? Jeff is like, can you just take me to the hotel? And they end up packing all into the other person's car. At this point, Jeff is telling Richie, hey, go grab the pew-pew, go grab the phone, go grab everything else from the car. And Richie's looking at him like, I'm not gonna do it. So the guy ends up going and grabbing it. They take him to a hotel and they end up spending $400 out of the $500 that the best friend had given them to be able to stay at that hotel for 4 days. But little did Richie know that they were only gonna be able to stay there for a day and a half, because he starts spazzing and she's looking at him like, I'm pregnant, like I'm tired. And he's like, I don't care, we're only gonna stay here for a day and a half. He ended up making a mistake and he used his real ID when he checked into the hotel. So at this point, the police have contacted Jason and said, hey, we found Daphne. Jason's like, oh, is she okay? Is she all right? And the police are like, is she okay? Like, and before they can even say anything, Jason just starts admitting all of his involvement in the entire situation. And so they tell him, hey, here's where she is. This is what hospital she's at. So immediately Jason just darts over to the hospital. And when he does that, the minute he gets to the hospital, they arrest him, right? Because the entire time what he didn't know was Daphne was at the hospital telling the police that he was the one that actually did this whole thing. Because the whole time she's just trying to cover up this whole situation she has going on with Randy. So she ends up telling the police, well, actually, I'm pregnant with my son's child. I'm carrying this child as a surrogate. So back in the hotel room with Richie and Jeff, he's telling her like, yo, we have to go. And then she's explaining to us, I guess, the two people that they almost hit, we're just gonna name them the guys. When they were in the car driving to the hotel, they ended up telling Richie and Jeff like, oh, we don't even know, like we're so drunk, we don't know if like you swerved into us or if we almost made you crash, like we don't know who caused this wreck. And so at this point, Jeff starts typing into his iPad and he tells Richie like, don't say anything, right? And he starts recording the conversation. And so this is when Jeff is like, yeah, you did cause it, you were the reason that we ended up crashing. Jeff's like, yeah, I have a dash camera and it's attached to my phone and I need to call the police, I need help, I'm injured. The guy started begging Jeff and being like, no, like please don't like call the police, like we'll just leave you guys stranded, like why are you acting like this? Mind you, at this point they were like an hour and a half away from the crash site. Jeff doesn't care, he's still going on with the ruse. He's like, yeah, I'll call the police and I'll tell them that you are drunk and that you kidnapped us. You want to get hit with a DUI and kidnapping? This entire time Jeff is still recording, he's making sure he gets their faces on the camera. Then the driver is gonna say, it's your word against ours. So this is when Jeff tells them, hey, I've been recording this entire conversation. And this is when the men start freaking out. Don't call the police, we're brothers, we can't live without each other. So Richie and Jeff are looking at each other like, you're brothers, but you can't live without each other? Turns out the guys, they were never brothers, they were actually lovers. And this is when the guys reveal, we're married to women, we can't have this get out. So then Jeff is like, boom, perfect, I'm gonna use this as leverage. So he tells them, give my daughter-in-law the keys, give her the keys to the car. So the guys hand over the keys and Jeff is like, hey, we're about to be on our way, you got to find your own way home. He's like, we can drop you off, but if you say anything to your wives, we'll tell them everything. So the guys at this point are laughing, and that's when Jeff picks up their wallets, and so they shut up real quick. Jeff's like, I can tell you got a lot of money based off the cards you have in this wallet. He's like, give me your passcode, put your passcode in. He writes down their passcodes to their phones as well. They hop in the car, Richie jumps into the driver's seat, Jeff is pointing the pew-pew at the men in the back seat. They end up heading back an hour and a half where they were just coming from. They end up passing by the car they had just totaled. The car's tinted, so they're good. But now, you know, they're trying to figure out, like, how the hell are we going to get back? Like, we can't drive by this twice. And so Jeff is trying to find another route for them to head back with, right? They finally drop off the guys. They get back to the hotel. Jeff now successfully has a car, new phones, money. Richie's looking at him like, this is not the first time this man has done this. So when they get back into the hotel room, he ends up smashing the hotel phone. And he looks at Richie. He's like, I have to take precaution, I can't let you, like, you know, rat me out. And that's why at that point he tells her, we're not staying here long, we have to leave because of all of that. The whole time Richie's like, yeah, that's cool. She's just trying to figure out how she can steal the keys and run off, but she ends up dozing off at that point. And when she wakes up, he's already awake trying to take care of his leg. And that's when this part ends, and he tells her basically, like, call Daphne right now. And Richie's looking at Jeff like, I'm not about to call Daphne, I don't have anything to say to that woman. And he's like, call Daphne right now, and the story time ends. And I want you guys to go to her page and finish out the story. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I wanted to make sure I got as much of the story that was out to you guys. Either way though, that story is completely off the wall. I would have never expected that something as simple as finding a magnum in the car would have turned out to all of that. Moral of the story for me is, never mess with a man like Randy who's too close to his family and very enmeshed with his mother. Instead, save yourself the emotional damage and get yourself a spicy toy. Yep, I'm teaming up with Balesa to give away free spicy toys or gift cards for free choice for anyone that signs up through the link on my profile. No lying, no cheating, no police reports, just peace and guaranteed satisfaction that buzzes and doesn't betray. Make sure you get yours. You guys tagged me in this a lot. I wanted to make sure I got it out to you guys. I appreciate you guys as always. Bye.